Oh, that was sad. I'm sorry. I just wanted to say thanks for Marcus, Stephen, and Carlos for joining Stephen and Summerann and I to talk a little bit about branding and marketing. Hi, Jessica.
Hi.
And kind of how that plays into what goes on at the chapter level. And just we're here to share some tips, some best practices, and some resources that we use locally that kind of help us execute like a marketing strategy in our chapters. So I am Brad Fisher. I am from the Milwaukee chapter, and I also am the chapter support fellow for YNPN National. And then joining us are Stephen and Summerann. If you guys want to introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Summerann. I'm one of the communications co-chairs of the YNPN Chicago chapter.
Hi guys, I'm Stephen, and I am also a communications co-chair from the YNPN chapter.
And then if the other folks that are joining us from other chapters want to go around and tell us who they are, what their role is, and kind of why they joined us tonight, that'd be great. Jessica, do you want to?
Jessica, you go first.
Yeah, sorry, I was just watching Carlos struggle, which was just music to me.
Story of my life.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm Jessica Labazetta. I'm YNPN St. Louis's newly elected president. Exciting. I'm here just to hear all the fun stuff that we're doing and make sure I take stuff back to our marketing team. They are at their meeting tonight, or else they would be on this call.
Mark, do you want to go?
Yeah, can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Good deal. So as y'all may have heard, Dallas is a very fun chapter. And so I'm board chair for Dallas YNPN. And so we have the makings of a communications and marketing strategy. We're thinking about what we want to be in this community, but I definitely would like to hear from the rest of the network on some of the challenges and some of the ways that you branded yourself. So I'm really super excited to hear more and to be more a part of it.
And then Stephen from, I think you said Southern Nevada. He doesn't have a mic. Okay. Well, Stephen, I guess in the chat box, could you just tell us what your role is at the Southern Nevada chapter? All right. And then Carlos, do you want to kind of introduce yourself also?
Sure. My name is Carlos Trejo with YNPN Chicago as well, where I'm currently serving as our external relations chair, and just interested in learning more about marketing communications, just seeing if there's some tips that can be applied in general, also outside of YNPN work.
Super. And then Stephen just says he's the creative chair for their chapter. This is his first year. And he's looking to revitalize their brand and developing additional creative. So that's exciting. So I'm glad everyone's here. I'll just give you guys a quick overview of the agenda. I have some slides put together on, actually I can probably share my screen. Give me just a second. Here we go. All right. There we go. Can you guys see my screen? Okay, don't judge me for all my tabs at the top, please. So just a brief agenda here of kind of what we have on the docket to talk about tonight, and what's kind of included in the slides. I put together just like a brief snippet of the national guidelines that are in the affiliation agreement, and not that is like a hard and fast rule. I know a lot of chapters like Chicago has existing branding that's grandfathered in, but the national guidelines would be helpful for like newer chapters, or if chapters are looking to rebrand or do like a logo refresh, something like that. That's where I kind of see that coming into play. And then chapter implementation, just some of what happens at the local chapter level with marketing and branding and design. And then we put together some tools and resources, whether it be templates, online tools, or just design tools in general. And then some samples of works from Chicago, and some samples of some work here in Milwaukee, kind of what those end pieces end up looking like when they go out, whether it's through our newsletter or through our website or what have you. And then we'll have some time just for open Q&A for folks to ask questions and just kind of chime in if they have feedback or other tools and resources that we could potentially add to these slides and share with the network. And then we'll talk about kind of what potential other program exchanges we can do for after this first one here in February. So for the national branding guidelines, these are just snips out of our brand manual. It's on the leader site, and I provided a link in there for you guys if you want to kind of poke around at that. I think it's helpful. I use that a lot to kind of do the logo design for a startup chapter in Sheboygan. So it was helpful to have one place to go for all of the color, like the Pantone and the RGB and the web numbers. All that is kind of in one place, which is super helpful because I feel like most folks don't know all that, and it's just like too much to kind of keep track of. But it shows some samples of logos if you're in like a newer chapter and don't know what the standard is for logos. That has some kind of pre-approved logos that you guys can use as a baseline and kind of go from there. And they show a couple different options as far as like the text-based or more of a graphic-based. So that's kind of good to see as well. And then I'll have Stephen and Summer Ann kind of dip into a little bit about the branding for YNPN Chicago and kind of what they do locally in their chapter.
Awesome. I'll kick it off. So with YNPN Chicago's branding, you'll see at the top there's a link to our branding packet. So you're welcome to click that. It's just going to take you to a PDF in our box files. You're welcome to look that over later, download it, use it as a sort of a guideline. But this was created a number of years ago in the YNPN Chicago chapter as just a way to share institutional knowledge, passing on. So, every 2 years when we have new communications chairs joining on, just an easy way to share information, make sure we're on the same page, that people are using the same guidelines, and then updating that obviously as the years go on. So I just put here like really 6 basic things to include if you are creating or updating your style guide for your chapter. Obviously, you're welcome to go into that PDF, right? If there's other ideas or things you see, feel free to borrow and sort of take things from there. But one of the things that we include, you'll see right at the beginning on page 3, is our statement of purpose and our goals. And I think that's a really important thing to have at the top of your branding packet, just as a way to make it clear, how are we using this guide? How's it going to support our chapter moving forward? What kind of guideline is it going to be and how are we going to rely on it moving forward? So that's a great way to just kick off your packet, make sure everyone's on the same page with how it's going to be utilized. Obviously outlining your language style. So I think this is important because you're probably going to have, nonprofit professionals from different backgrounds using different types of styles. So we use the APA style, which I think is pretty standard, but just outlining that, what does that mean? Making sure that when you're putting out blog posts, editing newsletters, having website language, that's just going to be consistent across the board. That's an easy thing to do, and it just makes your branding look a lot cleaner. If you scroll down to the next page, logo guidelines. So we have a few examples of that on the next slide as well, but just making sure that you have those colors outlined. As Bradley said, we have somewhat of a different logo because we are grandfathered in, but just putting there, how is it going to be changed for different formats, sort of what does the sizing look like, because that's an easy thing. That if you don't write it out and you don't have those clear guidelines, it can get lost, the information can get lost, as it gets handed down to new chairs in the future. Outlining the color and font, so fonts for your newsletter, your website, social media graphics, everything of that nature. Having the colors written out in all of the different like hex numbers, RGB, because chances are you're going to be using different types of online tools or resources that we offer a few suggestions later. So you just want to make sure those colors are consistent regardless of the software that you are using. And then last two things, so having your email communication standards, I think is a great thing to have in there, because not only communications chairs are going to be emailing, right, but everyone on your board is going to be emailing external partners, emailing members. You just want to make sure that's standard across the board and that people are getting, you know, the same look and the same message in that email. And then lastly, including any templates that you want to put for future chairs as well, and making sure that that's consistent. So those are sort of, you know, 6 top tips and tricks. If you go to the next slide, 6, we have just some examples of how we've optimized our logo for social media. So Steven's done a lot of this, but you'll see on the left, we have our standard logo that has the little, you know, tagline, strengthening Chicago's nonprofit community. And then on the right, you'll see optimized logo that we've used on social media, that we use as a watermark in our pictures and our online flyers. So it's just a quick example of how we've optimized our logo, but I think it's definitely important to write out that language and make sure you have those examples in your branding packet as you're either creating that for your chapter or potentially, you know, editing that and revising that for your team. So with that, I will hand it over to Steven.
Thanks, Marin. And I just want to preface and say I'm on vacation right now in Mexico City, and I'm probably the one with the street noise because it's very noisy here in Mexico City. So I apologize for that. I'm going to kind of sidebar a little bit with this next topic and talk about something that we find that is really kind of key to our success in Chicago, and that is a really strong team structure. So the way that we have done this historically and the way it's working for us now is we have 4 communications co-chairs, and each person is dedicated to one of our 4 channel focus areas. So we're on a rotating every 2 weeks we rotate all 4 of us, and that's great because it really prevents burnout. So you know, I think anyone can say, you know, if you've ever been in charge of social media, which I think all of us would agree is probably our most taxing of the rotations. You know, doing that week after week for, you know, a 2-year board term or however long your board terms are structured, it can really set you up for failure. So we have this kind of foolproof method where each of us kind of share an expertise in these 4 channels. And we're able to kind of just trade off those responsibilities intermittently throughout the calendar year. So we focus primarily on a weekly newsletter that goes out every Tuesday at 11 a.m. And that I think is incredibly challenging for YNPN chapters because you know, developing content week after week for a newsletter is very time consuming. So we've developed a lot of little tricks and things to make it easier on us, which we're going to kind of talk a little bit more about. But that's one big one is our newsletter. And it's great because it helps remind people each week that they are part of YNPN Chicago, that are what we're doing, and it reminds them of our ongoing programming, which we do anywhere from 2 to 4 programs every month. So we have a lot to sort of advertise and plug, and I would say our news is the main channel for doing that. And the next is website management. So obviously making sure that those events are live and that the language is set is really important. Uploading and putting up new blog content, and just making sure that all of that evergreen content is up to date with our most recently defined standards, and just, you know, basic maintenance of our website. Next is social media. On Facebook, Twitter. I would say Twitter is probably the biggest one. Twitter, we do, I think we shoot for 4 tweets a day. And then anywhere from 3 to 5 posts to Facebook. And then we use Instagram, really, we try to share in the moment around our events. You know, other timely to promote our programming, but really focus on Facebook for those. So that's social media. And then emails. Everyone loves when they're on email route because it is kind of a break. It's 2 weeks of just responding to email inquiries that we get from our website and from our partners, and making sure that we're answering those questions that come in a very timely manner. Just kind of to show our nonprofit community and that we're responsive, that we care about your questions and making sure that your experience with us is smooth. So at your load, it's a really important key channel that we manage. So that's all I have for that. Bradley, you want to unmute yourself?
No. So I took this the opportunity on this slide to kind of explain the challenge that we were facing in Milwaukee as far as marketing and how we are working in partnership with our events committee that does 90% of our programming is done through them. And the challenge that we were tasked with, I guess, just based on the fact that we're all volunteers and all the committees were kind of meeting separately, is there was this lag in communication, and it made it incredibly hard for us to effectively promote and create and kind of get the word out. And we were really seeing that in the end result, which was the folks that were attending our program. Some of them would have less than 20 people, and we really felt that the programming that we were delivering was high quality, high impact stuff that folks would want to attend. So what we did was we kind of thought about the process, and something that I kind of myself and the past marketing chairs thought about was what is the process, what is like the event planning process, and how does marketing play into that? And what we did was we designed a intake form essentially that allowed us to capture all of the information for an event that our events committee was planning. And by them putting that in there, it allowed everyone within our organization, whether it was marketing or fund development or the membership committee, anyone that was potentially going to be involved in a program, they were all getting the same information. That was kind of our signal to act. So marketing would get that PDF, and there's links in the bullets below as to what that form looks like and what the submission looks like. But that really was like our signal to like hit the ground, pull the graphics together, get the web page going, get social media content kind of brewing. And that's been very helpful for us really the last year. We've been using it very consistently, and it's really changed the way that we work, and it's been very helpful. The other thing that we did that kind of helped us be more consistent in our just the way that we were creating graphics and content was through a marketing standards package. And it sounds so simple that you kind of know, like, oh, we're going to have a Facebook event and we have a graphic for that and a flyer and whatever. But prior to really putting that package together, it was just kind of piecemeal all the time. So things were forgotten or put together after the fact, or just not consistent. So by creating that standards package and kind of defining what are the pieces that we need for an event, we're able to be very thoughtful about that and sit down and kind of create everything at once and get it to the people that need it. If it's the newsletter person, the website person, the social media person, kind of being able to get everyone what they need kind of right away. And then kind of similar to Chicago, I just wanted to include just a high level overview of our different roles. And it sounds like Chicago is on like a cycle for their committee members, and we're kind of task oriented. We have a person that does just social, a person that does just graphics, newsletter, that are kind of in those areas. And that's just, I don't think that we have thought about it any other way, kind of now that I see how Chicago works. Dare I say that the famous word, that's just how we do it. But that's how we've done it. So maybe that'll change, who knows? But I think one of the things that have been helpful for us and engaging our members and our audience is kind of exclusive content. One of the things that we implemented that's been very successful and has been getting a lot of clicks and folks that are interested in seeing it hit their inbox on Fridays is our jobs e-blast every Friday at 5 o'clock. We pick 5 nonprofit jobs of various levels from executive director to assistant or intern. And we share those with our membership as a way to connect people to opportunities that they might not otherwise know about or have access to. So that's been pretty successful for us. Stephen, is this summary going over the resources?
Yeah, we're going to kind of trade off here. So I've kind of got the first bullet here. I'm going to talk about some easy, design, I guess, resources that we kind of use week after week. In no particular order, there's a great site called Canva, which is free. They do charge for royalty-free stock graphics packages and photos, but you can go pretty far without paying for anything. And so we take a lot of what we're creating into Canva just to format, crop, and get things ready for executing on our various channels. Picture chart we haven't used, but I know Summeran has used in the past, and it's great for developing infographics and presentation graphics. And just anytime you're trying to get a dense amount of information without building something from scratch in Adobe InDesign or Illustrator. Now, so those are kind of sort of free tools that are great for, actually, I think Pictochart does charge, if I'm not mistaken, but it's not very much. Summer, you can probably correct me on that. But then that's for the folks that are not graphic designers, which, let's face it, a lot of folks who are working nonprofits or working at this level aren't necessarily trained in graphic design. Great if you are. My background happens to be in graphic design, so I do develop a lot of our materials in Adobe Creative Cloud using Illustrator, Photoshop, InDesign. And if you have an Adobe Creative Cloud subscription, great, because there's an app called Adobe Spark, which is similar to Canva, but it's just really mobile friendly. It's great for developing materials on the fly. I use it all the time, particularly for our YNPN Chai Chat series. We pose 7 questions over Twitter, and I take those 7 questions and turn them into sort of visual question cards that are part of each post. And so that's nice for just throwing some text into something and putting a nice background on it, and it taking, not an entire night's worth of work to do. I want to tell you guys about a resource you may not be aware of. If your chapter is a registered 501c3, or if your nonprofit organization that you work for is, and you want to dip your toe in graphic design, or you've spent some time doing some graphic design work, TechSoup is a terrific resource that's, I think it's actually funded in part by Bill Gates and a few other Silicon Valley bigwigs. And basically what they do is they provide software at a very cheap, reduced level. So my organization that I work for here in Chicago, Marillac St. Vincent, pays a little under $400 for the entire Creative Cloud suite, which includes a suite of around 30 programs. 80% of I don't use, and I don't even know what they're for, but I think it's around a $3,000 value, if not more. So you're talking a really deep discount. There's a link in that slide to TechSoup, and basically you just register for it and they treat it like a grant. And so that's kind of an indispensable tool for nonprofits. I definitely recommend using that. The last one that's on there is Vector Stock. So if you are jumping into graphic design and you're using Adobe Illustrator, there's an incredible website called Vector Stock, and it's royalty-free stock art that's created that you use for Adobe Illustrator. And you can take sort of like complex sort of cartoon graphics and what we might call clip art. And you can go in and each of those shapes that are assigned colors, you can change the colors in Adobe Illustrator to be on brand with your organization. I'll show you guys some examples of when I've used those later. But vector stock, it's basically $1 per download. It's really, really cheap. And I use it all the time. So yeah, that's another great one. So I think, Summerin, you're going to talk to us about social scheduling.
I am. So there's 4 social scheduling tools I have here. Obviously, there's others out there, but these are my go-tos. So Buffer is the one YNPN Chicago just started using in the past year. I've used it at other nonprofits before. It's kind of a very small cost. They have a really great nonprofit discount. I think it's about $5 a month, I want to say. But that's going to allow you to schedule on Twitter, Facebook, or even get some content on Instagram if you like to schedule those in advance. What I like about Buffer is that, as Stephen said earlier, you can plan out how many times a day you want to tweet. So Buffer actually talks to your analytics on each social platform, and then it will optimize when you should be posting every day. So if YNPN Chicago decides, hey, we want to tweet 4 times a day, we have enough content for that, you tell Buffer, and then it tells you the 4 times that you should tweet every day. So it's just really great. It talks to your analytics. If you're someone who likes to report on your analytics every month, it gives you some more information there. It's really clean, easy to use. You just plug in your content and it goes out at whatever time you specify. I think I'm getting a little feedback. Sorry. TweetDeck is another one. So that's Twitter specific. The reason I like it is because TweetDeck actually is from Twitter itself. So if Twitter is making any updates, like adding more characters, you can add multiple images, anything that Twitter is doing, TweetDeck is going to reflect those changes right away with your social scheduling. So that's a great thing. It has all of your lists there. It looks a lot like Twitter, but it just allows you to schedule in advance. So it's very user-friendly. It is a free resource, which is great. Hootsuite, we used to use this for our social scheduling. It's still great. I think it's maybe just a little bit behind where TweetDeck and Buffer are in terms of how often it's updating with new information, but also talks to your Facebook, talks to your Twitter, and talks to your Instagram. So you can put all 3 on there. And then lastly, Facebook pages. So I know Buffer and Hootsuite allows you to schedule your Facebook post in advance for your page. Personally, I find doing it directly through Facebook the easiest, in the sense that when you put in your links, you put in your messaging, you add in your photos, you know exactly how that post is going to look when it goes live on Twitter. I have found in the past that sometimes if I schedule something for Facebook through a Buffer or a Hootsuite, it looks one way on my screen when I schedule it, and then when it goes live on the Facebook page, it actually looks very different, and that's, for someone who cares about branding and consistency, very frustrating. So I like to go straight to the source. I go to our Facebook YNPN Chicago page. I put in my link, it might be a bit.ly. I'll put in my image. I get all my language, put my spacing in there, whatever the case may be. I can schedule it, and then I can preview it before it goes live. So if I need to make any of those little tweaks for it to come up just the way I want it to on the screen, make sure it's mobile friendly and everything, I just like to go straight to the source. So that's a personal preference. Obviously, it's free and it's included if you have a Facebook page, but I'll just put a small plug in there if you're looking at keeping, your images and your messaging consistent across your platforms.
Great. I want to talk to you guys about photos. So, we pull photos from a number of sources. It's so easy just to jump on Google and do an image search for what you're looking for. A picture of glasses clinking is a great, happy hour photo that you can throw some text on and put together a nice little image to promote your networking event. Just be careful again with Google Images that you're checking copyright. So a lot of folks, particularly those that are, photographers that make their living at taking photos, they can do reverse image searching, and they can find where their images are being used on the web. And if they see that you're posting their images without crediting them on your website or on your social media posts, they can check you for that. So just be careful that you're using Google Images is great, but insofar as that you're using royalty-free images that are public domain. Canva stock photos, again, it's going back to Canva. I've never used this personally. I think that their prices are a little bit steep. So I tend to not use theirs as often. Flickr, again, these are user-submitted photos. In many cases, they look really professional. You can send a quick message to the photographer using Flickr or on Instagram and request credit to use their photos, which I do all the time. But by and large, we're using our own photos that we take at our events. So I'm a photographer, and I have a camera, and her name's Rhonda, and everyone on the board knows Rhonda because I use her for everything. But I take photos, high resolution, nice photos that can be used and repurposed in posts and shared in albums, just to sort of build engagement. But I highly recommend, if everyone has phones in their cameras in their pockets. And particularly with like iPhone's portrait mode and stuff, you can get really nice looking quality images to use in your posts. So I mean, nothing beats original photography from your own, from your own events and your own programming. The last thing is budgeting to hire a photographer. So I know at Marillac St. Vincent, we use a photographer that we used for years, and she charges us $200 for a night of photography at one of our galas or one of our special events. It's a pretty good deal, but you can usually find people that are willing to put in some hours to take some great photos for you. And I recommend developing some stock photos for your recurring events. Like for us, we have coffees and morning huddles and happy hours and professional development, where it's just sort of recurring ongoing events. And it's nice to just pull that same photo up every time that we promote that event from our stockpile of stock photos.
Awesome. So I'm going to touch on analytics briefly here. So I would recommend, if you're someone that's new to communications and marketing, you're just really building up that branding, maybe hold off on doing analytics for 2 or 3 months until you have something a little consistent going out. You know what you want to be measuring. But here at YNPN Chicago, we have been producing monthly reports on our analytics, and those get included in our board report. So the entire board sees sort of how we're doing. We're going to include Google Analytics in there. So looking at website traffic, how are people getting to our events? Where are they coming from? Are they clicking from the newsletter? Are they coming from social media? Sort of where is that traffic and how can we increase that? But also looking at the analytics of our social channels. So what the great thing is, Facebook and Twitter, they both have built-in like insights or analytic tabs. They're worded a little bit differently, but they're going to give you some pretty easy data every month. It'll go back 28 days. So you just have to be careful that you're pulling that data at the very end of the month so you can see the full month of those 28 days. But just looking at what posts are getting engagement, where are users clicking, what sort of was seeing the highest engagement or lowest engagement, what was seeing those click-throughs, looking at, we use MailChimp as our weekly newsletter. So looking at the MailChimp numbers, seeing, what is resonating with people, what language are people, clicking on and wanting to see, and just reporting that on a monthly basis. So internally on your communications team, you can sort of see what's doing well, where are people getting to your programs, how are they registering for your events or whatever your call to action may be, and then maybe where are some areas you can work and focus on in the upcoming month. Obviously, there's going to be ebbs and flows in terms of month to month, if holidays or people are on summer vacation, whatever the case may be. It's not always going to look, awesome or build every single month, but overall, as long as trends are looking better, you're asking yourself the questions, how can we make this a little bit stronger? Like I said, once you're a few months into having some really consistent marketing communications going out, bringing in that analytics side is really just going to make it stronger. And it's also going to show your board the great work that you're doing and allow you to continue to grow that presence. And I'll turn it over to Stephen for the main takeaways here.
So main takeaways is probably the wrong verbiage for this, but a couple of additional things to just think about in terms of tools and resources. When you're posting to social media in particular, really sticking to the 80-20 rule. So the 80% in that is sort of tangential content that's unrelated to what you're specifically doing in your chapter. So really trying to focus on what's happening in your sector locally, finding all-stars in your cities in the nonprofit world that are doing great work and really spotlighting that. And then, sharing great articles that are up to date around resume building and things that are pertinent to job seekers. You know, just it's not necessarily, it's not your original content. It's pulling resources from around the web, but it's all kind of around the theme of things that are relevant to your community of nonprofit professionals. And then the 20 rule, the 20 side of that is your stuff. So promoting your events, promoting your blog posts, promoting your members, and talking about your board and the great work that you're doing for the community, and just reminding people that that your chapter is a resource for them in their work and in their community. The last thing, again, not a main takeaway, this is another sidebar, but the Google AdWords grant is, so we're talking really high level, varsity level marketing communication stuff here. But if you are a registered 501(c), you do qualify for the Google AdWords grant. It's a pretty complex system, and there's some really great trainings out there, particularly on lynda.com, Lynda. They have quite a few courses and stuff around learning how to use the Google AdWords grant. I've just been dipping my toe into it now, and I will say it is pretty complicated, but it's free money. It's $10,000 a month, spread out around $329 per day ad budgets. So in other words, you know, if someone goes onto Google and searches nonprofit networking event near me, you want to make sure that your events are showing up and that your website is showing up high in those search results. And oftentimes it's difficult to have that happen organically. So Google has said, if you're a nonprofit, we're going to give you this resource, and you'll appear top in that search in that area in an ad. So again, it's free money that's on the table. And if you do have the time and resources to invest into that, I mean, there's no question that you're going to see the return. You're going to see great attendance at your events and great engagement on your website and on your various channels, all from that really incredible.
I just wanted to echo some of the things that Stephen and Summer Ann highlighted just in his tools and resources. I know I personally use Adobe Creative Suite just because I have access to it through my job, but working with the startup chapter in Sheboygan and them being up there and me being in Milwaukee, Canva has been a great resource for us. You know, cloud-based is definitely great, and anyone can just jump in and do what they need to do for creating graphics and kind of getting marketing materials ready to be distributed. So that's been definitely very great for us. And I know for the copyright issue with Google Images, I do know that they have a filter. If you go into like the image settings when you're searching, you can sort it by if they're like approved for reuse and things like that. So that's something that is helpful if you're going that route. And then this next slide I put together, or in 2016, I attended our national conference in Portland, and I attended this workshop called Using Little Tech for Big Wins. And the speaker had provided us with just a handout with a whole slew of great resources, you know, a lot of things that were featured on the last slide, and then a lot of additional things. And I wanted to make sure that that was just kind of re-highlighted. Because I reference that on a regular basis. If I need something and I'm not sure where to go, that's kind of a great catch-all, because it just encompasses so much about marketing and communications and social engagement and kind of the whole gamut of you know, what resources are available online and just in the world for folks to take advantage of. So you guys should be able to just click on this handout link, and I believe it's a PDF. It's kind of long, so maybe just save it. Don't necessarily print it. But definitely a great resource. And then I'll let you guys jump back in and do some of the samples of your work, and then some of the samples of the stuff that I've done in Milwaukee. So if you guys want to jump back on.
Yeah, awesome. So we've included a link here at the top next to the weekly newsletter, and that's just going to take you to basically an archive page where you can see every weekly newsletter we've sent starting in last September. So this is just a great way, you know, if you're starting up or looking at refining a weekly or a monthly email for your YNPN chapter, just to get some general ideas of the content we're putting out there, to get an idea of how we're branding that, I'm going to sort of walk us through the next couple of slides that have this information sort of visually put there. So the next slide, 13, is really just a screenshot of one of those weekly newsletters. So the way that we lay it out, if you click on the link, is that we're going to have 3 main blocks at the top of our newsletter. So these are 2 of those blocks here in the screenshot, where we're going to highlight big things that are going on. So for instance, like having an announcement or having a specific networking event, having a special event, any of those big timely news items, we're going to leave 3 main spots at the top of the newsletter that are probably going to rotate every week. Sometimes if an event's coming up, we might put it in there for like 2 or 3 weeks running just to get attendance and to get people to see it, but those are going to rotate. And then at the bottom of the newsletter, if you click on one of the links, we have 5 what we call open tabs. It's sort of our play on words there, but 5 sort of news items that go back to what Stephen was saying with the 80-20 rule. So that's going to be part of that 80% of content, where those 5 links are going to go to just general information that would interest our followers. So that could be, you know, just general nonprofit sector news. It could be Chicago specific news. It could be YNPN national news, but it's usually going to be something outside of YNPN Chicago in terms of something that we think is of interest to our followers, that we think would add value, something they want to know. So that's just an extra place to sort of plug in information and things that are timely and relevant. Going on to the next slide, these are just some examples of past special event graphics. So these are actually created by a member volunteer. So the one on the left, taking it back to the 90s, that was the theme of our big celebration event last spring. So it's our annual event where we celebrate all the great things that have happened in the nonprofit sector. And that was the main graphic that we were putting, you know, on the website, in newsletter communications, on social media. So that sort of lived across platforms. And then on the right-hand side, Season of Giving was our theme for this past November's Holiday Social. So our Holiday Social is another big annual event that we do every year on Giving Tuesday. And so once again, that was sort of the main graphic with all the information. And then we were using versions of that graphic to go across social media and in the newsletter. Walking down to the next slide, Stephen referenced this earlier, but these are just examples of what those YNPN Chai Chat graphics look like. So it's our monthly Twitter chat. We want to make sure it looks consistent with our colors, with the fonts. So you can see on the right-hand side what one of the questions might look like during that hour that we're on the Twitter chat. And then on the left-hand side, sort of more of an announcement type of Twitter icon, same colors, just a little bit different layout. You'll tell we have our watermark on both of those. So the YNPN Chicago logo in the watermark version, once again, paying attention to the colors that we're using, the size guidelines, going back to that branding package, just being consistent across the board with all of our social media graphics. And then I'll let Stephen take the last couple of slides here with examples.
Yeah, thanks, Simran. So this is, I think for us, you know, it's all about saving time. So instead of reinventing the wheel by creating, you know, graphics that are, you know, of various shapes and sizes and everything, we try to stick to a really consistent 2x3 graphic that we use for every single event that we do. So developing an image or graphic for every page on your site is really important. And the reason for that is that, you know, you're taking your links on your site to share on your platforms, to share in your newsletter. And a lot of times those images are auto-populated in the post. And so you want to make sure that those images that are, belong to that page, that it's not like it's not your website logo or your board chair's headshot that appears in that populated post for your event. You want to make sure that it's specific to your event. So in terms of building those images, there's some great, I guess, things that we stick to, which is that the image is easily scalable across multiple digital platforms. So whether I'm using it on Facebook or Twitter or anything, sticking to that 2x3, although it's not always perfect, it gets you really close. It also makes for a really nice header at the top of a web page for an event or a blog post or any content that you have on your site. Make sure that when you are developing those that you're incorporating your brand colors and fonts. So this example that you see that's on slide 16, the one that says keep calm and fear not, public speaking in the workplace. That was an event that we did last fall. And you can see that it's using our future of font, and it's got our 2 shades of blue with our 1 shade of green. And it's and I used a vector stock art that was different shades of pink and purple and something else on that podium and on those microphones. I simply went into Adobe Illustrator and I just selected those objects individually and changed the colors. And what that did is it took that graphic and it made it on brand for YNPN Chicago. I'm going to show you guys several more examples of those as well in the next slides. But the other thing is making sure that the file size is small. So we find that well over half of our users are accessing our content on their phones. And, you know, you don't want people, you don't want to see people bouncing away from your pages simply because images are taking too long to load in their screen view. So keeping those images under 250K is really going to help you with that. And the other thing is with our graphics, we want to make sure that they're favoring headline information over heavy details. So, you know, if you've got the date, the time, the speaker's bio, and a little slug line about what the event entails, all included in a graphic, you know, depending on people's screen size and aspect ratio of that graphic and how it's appearing, you know, that they're going to have to pinch and zoom to read that information, and they're just going to say, forget it. So save that information for your body text. Really make sure that your graphics are focusing on the bigger details. So the event name, or maybe you know, featuring this particular speaker that people are going to recognize, that it's the most bold and important information. And overall, for us, because we are really creating these on the fly so quickly, and we've got, you know, crazy deadlines and we're all crunched for time, we just try our best to keep it simple. The more complex these designs get, again, with overloading people with information, the more people are going to be turned off and the more you're going to get burned out yourself. And so when I say 2 by 3, what I mean in terms of dimensions are like 1200 pixels by 800 pixels. Or for a print document, you know, you would say 6 inches by 4 inches. Those are great examples of like a 2 by 3 ratio. Hope I'm not over explaining that. The next couple of slides are just examples of these 2 by 3 graphics that I've created for some events. You know, you can see our speed networking happy hour, how to work the room step by step. The next slide, again, we're seeing more of these 2 by 3 graphics. And you can see that in many cases, I am sticking to our brand colors, but it is okay to kind of play around every once in a while. You know, as long as people are used to seeing your visual language repeated often enough that they recognize your events. You know, it's okay every once in a while to have a little bit of fun with it, particularly for you know, an organization like YNPN and like our local chapters who are catering to young people, and you know, we're really drawn to bright colors and you know, interesting graphics and you know, pictures of other young people engaging in conversation, and you know, really making it look like it's a poppy, fun, cool event or a neat blog post that's relevant to them is so important. So I think that's it on that.
Thank you. And then I just have a couple slides in here of some of our stuff that we've done in Milwaukee, just sample program flyers and social graphics and like a sample Facebook banner. And that's kind of part of our standards package. And I kind of go through, I typically am the person creating currently the graphics. So like I said before, once I get that email notification from our events committee, when they submit that form, that gives me all the information that I need to get going. So we always, as part of that standards package, create just a regular PDF version of the flyer. It's something that our board felt very strongly about. They felt that it was something that they needed to be able to share with people, either as a PDF or as a paper version. So we always create that just to kind of check that box as just, you know, having that available for folks that need it in that format. And then typically our other graphics that we use are a little more pared down, not as information intensive, like this, like banner graphic here, just like a little detail as to what the event is, and then just like our headline here. our logo. We happen to have a sponsor, which is very exciting. So we have their logo on there as well. And then just some social graphics down here. One that we use, we kind of have a standard format for, I call it like a teaser graphic for speakers, or this one's for an honoree for an award that we have that we're giving out on Friday. So we just kind of reuse that same, things that are working. We just kind of keep using those and just kind of keeping that in the standards package. And then this little thank you slide for our sponsor. So we have that in there as well, just kind of a modified version of that, that other social graphic. And then here's just a couple others, kind of the same similar thing, banner graphic, just kind of showing who our folks are that are going to be there, what the name of the event is, and how folks can register to attend. One of those teasers on who one of the speakers is, and then just a nice little thank you one that we shared out for our, I believe that was for the host location. Just try to make it simple and just kind of get folks energized by the graphic and the content, and then allowing them to go to our website or through our social channels to kind of get more in-depth information on what the event is, or kind of what the details are. And then this is just a sample of our general membership brochure, just something that we kind of struggled with for a couple years and never felt like we had it just right. We felt like it was too this, too that. So we kind of rethought it a little bit. And this cover graphic is like going back to what Stephen said about like real photos from your real events are really like the best recipe. Us having a photographer, we don't have a huge budget like most chapters don't, but being able to contract someone to come in and do that for us. Some of those photos from that event I use on a regular basis for our just general marketing materials. And it's just been very valuable to have access to that. It's something that's high quality and looks kind of good. However you use it has been really great. And then just a little snip of the inside there, kind of talking about some of our programs and whatnot that we have that are kind of ongoing, like our signature programs, I guess, if you will. And then just this last slide here, just kind of going over program exchanges. If you guys have additional resources or things that you feel your chapter is an expert on and would like to present on, I'm kind of going through survey feedback right now to determine what those might look like, but any volunteers are definitely appreciated, and we can plug you into the schedule for the next couple months as that gets built out. But you can share any resources that you have with me to go into the leader site on the resource library, which is a great place to go. There is some communication stuff in there, and some of the items that were provided by Stephen and Summer Ann will also be included in that resource library for folks to kind of reference later on. Like I said, you can host a program exchange if there's a specific thing that you're looking to share with the network. That's always appreciated. And then in the next couple months, we'll be releasing RFP for folks to speak at the conference and present on whatever it is that they are experts on. I know Carlos has presented in the past, but that'll be coming out soon too. So I do want to open up these last couple minutes, and we just have a couple. If you guys have any questions, feel free to chime in, or any feedback at all about anything related to marketing or branding or social media or anything like that. Marcus or Jessica, did you guys have any questions?
No, I just wanted to say thank you, because I didn't know Buffer offered a discount for nonprofits, and we're about to sign up for a new venue that I'm doing for work. So I'm like, oh, that's actually helpful. I didn't know all of that. I guess my one question would be like, how do you guys organize your photos? Because I realized when we switched to Google Drive, we were trying to reorganize ourselves. And like, do you guys have a sense of like the best way to organize photos on a budget? Like without, I don't know, like buying Dropbox, and because we want to use G Drive, but like any suggestions on organization?
What we do right now, and I'm not advocating that it's the best way, but it's what we're doing right now. we just kind of organize everything. We have a shared folder on our drive that is, I can probably actually show you. Can you still see my screen? Okay. So we just have a shared folder that has, that everyone on our board has access, or everyone on our Google Drive has access to. Photo library, and they're just kind of organized by events. So this is like not super organized right now, but like our funders panel has a couple photos in there. Just like, these are not professional by any means. It's just a lot of iPhone pictures that folks send to us. So we just organize them that way, just to know what, at least what they're from. And then on an ongoing basis, if I need something, like I was working on a slideshow for our kickoff on Friday, and I'm able to kind of go back in there by year. I want last year's stuff and kind of see what I have to pick from. So that's how we do it. If that's helpful and not so helpful, I'm not sure, but.
This is absolutely off topic, but since you showed that, could you share a screenshot of your hierarchy of your Google Drive? Because that looked
extra,
super helpful. Someone transitioned everything over and did not understand Google Drive, and the rest of our board didn't understand Google Drive. And so this transition has been super fun.
Yeah, I can definitely do that. That's no
That'd
problem.
be awesome.
Cool. Yeah, and we're also using Google Drive for everything, and I think it's mostly organized, so I can also provide some support with that. The question I had, I'm not super familiar with Nation Builder yet, but are you running your event registration through Nation Builder? And if so, what kind of analytics are you pulling from that? Yeah.
I know. Go ahead.
I was going to say, it's funny you mentioned that because our site went live yesterday. Yeah, so we just now transitioned from a WordPress to Nation Builder. We not to make excuses for Chicago, but we're one of the older chapters, and we kind of had built all this infrastructure before National had transitioned to Nation Builder. So we were kind of late adopters, and we went through a long process on developing our site. So a long answer to not your question. We are just now switching over, and we're about to enter that world. So Marcus, as you're discovering some answers, please share them with me and Samaran, because we're going to be pulling some of that data as well. But for our website, we really do use Google Analytics because it's free and it is incredibly robust, detailed information. And I highly recommend taking some just online YouTube classes and stuff to learn how to use it, because if you're not using it, it's really a powerful tool.
And in Milwaukee, we do use Nation Builder for our all of our events. We typically create for public events a Facebook page, and then you're able to link that to the Nation Builder event page. That way, if folks are signing up on Facebook, you're kind of still capturing that that engagement piece. And one of the things I think Jessica and I at the conference talked about was like managing duplicates. So one of the things that I do on a regular basis is make sure I'm going in and pairing folks, and because sometimes they'll have like a Facebook profile and it's not linked to their email account, so they'll have a separate profile. So I always do that, kind of merging the duplicates to make sure that we can see like our event registration lists are accurate and there's not people listed multiple times or with weird names or anything like that. But as far as analytics for that, I don't have that information. I'd have to reach out to Cherie, who's our chair, to see what specific analytics she has on our event registration, how that works.
I just want to circle back really quick to your question, Jessica, about photo management. So I just posted this question online or on Facebook to my friends because I've been looking for a solution to photo storage. And for me, what's important to me is that not only am I storing the photos, but am I able to visualize like what's in the folders? Because it's great that I know where things are, but sometimes I'm looking for that one picture of like, a multicultural group of people having a beverage at a networking event, standing next to, an arcade machine. So like not knowing something beyond like the file name is really helpful. And so one friend recommended to me Pixieset, and I'll give you that as well. Here, Pixieset.com. And everyone that commented was like, yes, Pixieset, Pixieset, Pixieset. So apparently I'm behind the curve on that, but basically it's kind of organizes your photos looking like you're looking at albums, like on Facebook, for instance, or like a website gallery view. And so it's really nice to visualize everything and keep things in folders. I haven't played with it yet, but it looks so cool. And you get 3 gigabytes of storage for free. And I think after that, it jumps up to $8 a month. So if you guys have a budget for that, I recommend it. The other thing is Flickr, same idea. So you're organizing photos, the files of photos inside albums, and it's just easier to visualize photos that way. Really, cloud storage like Dropbox and Google Drive, they have not figured out a way to, for people that are pulling a lot of photos all the time and storing photos, they haven't figured out a way to easily navigate that yet. So people are turning to these alternate places like Pixieset and Flickr for storing photos.
All right, well, if there's no other questions, I think we can call it a night. We're at a little past 8 o'clock my time. So you guys have any other questions, or are we good to go? Good? All right.
All good.
Super. Thanks so much, guys. Thank you, Stephen and Summer-Ann. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to help share you guys this expertise.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Good night.